Homeless girl saves a man from a car accident. Weeks later, he returns with an engagement ring. The rain fell in heavy sheets that night, turning the city streets into shimmering rivers of silver and shadow. Under the rusted belly of an old iron bridge where the roar of traffic overhead blended with the relentless patter on the pavement below, Lena huddled close to her one true companion. She was 24 years old, with auburn hair tangled like wild vines from the wind's merciless tug, and eyes the color of faded chestnuts, deep, weary, but holding on to a spark that refused to die. Wrapped in a threadbare blanket that smelled of damp earth and forgotten hopes, she pulled Buddy nearer. The little stray dog, a scruffy mix of terrier and who knows what with fur matted from too many storms, nuzzled into her side. His warm breath puffed against her chilled skin, a small rhythm of loyalty in a world that had long since turned its back. Lena's fingers, rough and cracked from endless days of scavenging, absently stroked Buddy's ear. He let out a soft sigh, his tail giving a lazy thump against the cardboard they'd claimed as their shelter. It wasn't much, a flattened box from some long-ago delivery, softened by layers of newspaper clippings she'd gathered for insulation. But it was theirs, this hidden nook beneath the bridge, where the city's underbelly met the sky's indifference. The air carried the sharp tang of wet concrete and distant exhaust, mixed with the faint, briny whisper of the river nearby. Overhead, headlights streaked like shooting stars, indifferent to the souls they passed by. Lena pulled her knees to her chest, trying to trap what little warmth her body could muster. Hunger gnawed at her belly, a familiar ache that came and went like an uninvited guest. But tonight it felt sharper, edged with the bite of winter's early promise. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting her mind drift to warmer places. Memories were her escape, fragile threads she wove into stories to chase away the cold. She saw her parents' cozy brownstone in Brooklyn, the one with the creaky front steps and the bay window that caught the morning sun just right. Her father, Thomas, with his broad shoulders and hands perpetually stained with engine grease, would be in the garage, humming old jazz tunes as he tinkered with bicycles. "Fix what's broken, mi hija," he'd say, his voice gravelly but kind, handing her a wrench that felt like an extension of his own arm. Her mother, Rosa, would call from the kitchen, her laughter light as birdsong, stirring a pot of chamomile tea that filled the house with its soothing floral steam. Evenings were for stories, Rosa's voice weaving tales of brave heroines who outsmarted dragons and danced under moonlit skies, while Thomas nodded along, his eyes twinkling with pride. Those days felt like another life, one painted in soft golds and reds. Lena had been 21 then, fresh into community college, her sketchpad always tucked under her arm, filled with drawings of fantastical worlds where lost girls found their way home. She'd dream of becoming an illustrator, turning words into pictures that made hearts swell. But dreams shatter like glass under the weight of reality. 3 years ago, on a slick autumn road much like this one, fate had dealt its cruelest hand. Tomas and Rosa, driving home from a late-night parent-teacher conference, had hit a patch of black ice. A semi-truck appeared from the fog, too fast, too sudden. The crash was a symphony of horror. Metal twisting, glass exploding, lives snuffed out in the blink of an eye. Lena got the call in her dorm room, the dean's voice cracking over the line like dry leaves. She raced to the hospital, but it was too late. Only echoes remained, the sterile beep of machines winding down, the lawyer's folder thick with eviction notices and medical bills that piled like accusations. The debts came for everything. The brownstone, that sanctuary of laughter, was foreclosed within months, swallowed by loans her parents had taken to pay for her tuition, stretched thin by love for their only child. Lena sold what she could, her father's tool chest, her mother's sequined dress, the golden retriever Max who'd been her shadow since puppyhood. But it wasn't enough. Odd jobs flickered and faded, waitressing shifts cut short by exhaustion, freelance sketches rejected for being too whimsical. The streets crept in slowly, then all at once. Shelters overflowed with faces like hers, and pride kept her from begging too loudly. Buddy found her one rainy dawn, a shivering pup abandoned in an alley, and in his wide eyes she saw her own reflection, scared but stubborn. "We're in this together," she'd whispered, sharing her first scrap of bread. He became her anchor, the soft thump of his tail a heartbeat against the silence. Nights like this tested her resolve. The wind whistled through the bridge's girders like a mournful flute, carrying snatches of distant music from a bar across the river. Laughter that stung like salt in a wound. Lena's stomach growled, reminding her the last meal had been a half-eaten apple from a park bin, its core tart and unforgiving. She thought of the photo in her pocket, crumpled but cherished. Her family on the stoop, arms linked, smiles wide as the summer sky. "One day," she murmured to Buddy, her voice barely audible over the rain. "One day we'll have a real roof again, with a fire and tea that smells like Mama." Buddy tilted his head as if understanding and licked her hand, a wet, reassuring kiss that brought a small smile to her lips. In that moment, kindness felt possible, even here in the shadows. But the night had more in store, a twist of fate wrapped in thunder. As the storm intensified, lightning cracking the sky like a whip, cars barreled past on the elevated road above. Their tires hissed on the wet asphalt, a monotonous rush that lulled Lena into a half-doze. Then a sharp screech pierced the din, tires locking, protesting against the slick surface. She bolted upright, heart slamming against her ribs like a caged bird. Below the bridge, at the intersection where the ramp curved sharply, a sleek black sedan fought for control. Its headlights swerved wildly, painting erratic beams across the puddles. The driver overcorrected, and time slowed. The car hydroplaned, slamming into the guardrail with a metallic groan that echoed like a cry. Sparks erupted, bright and furious, and then flames. Orange tongues licked at the undercarriage, hungry and quick, fed by spilled fuel that gleamed like liquid fire. Lena's breath caught, fear and instinct warring in her chest. "Oh God," she gasped, scrambling to her feet. Her boots, worn thin from miles of wandering, slipped in the mud, but she kicked them off without a thought, bare feet gripping the cold ground like roots seeking earth. Buddy barked sharply, a warning laced with worry, but she hushed him with a glance. "Stay, boy. I'll be right back." The fire's heat reached her even from afar, a blistering wave that dried the rain on her skin. Smoke billowed, thick and acrid, stinging her eyes as she sprinted down the embankment, her blanket abandoned in the rush. The car's door was jammed, warped by the impact, but adrenaline surged through her veins like liquid fire of its own. She yanked with all her might, muscles screaming from disuse, nails scraping metal until her fingers bled. Inside, slumped against the wheel, was a young man, tall, with dark chestnut hair matted by blood from a gash on his forehead. His face was pale as moonlight, lips parted in a silent plea. "Hey, can you hear me?" Lena shouted, her voice raw over the crackle of flames. No response, but his chest rose faintly, alive, barely. The fire crept closer, heat singeing the hem of her coat. She reached across him, fumbling with the seatbelt, her hands trembling but sure. Come on," she urged, as if willpower alone could unclip the latch. It gave with a snap, and she hooked her arms under his, heaving with a grunt that tore from her throat. He was heavy, solid muscle and bone, but she dragged him inch by agonizing inch, her bare feet sliding in the muck. Flames roared now, a beast awakened, nipping at the tires. One final pull, fueled by a mother's fierce love she didn't even know she had yet, and they tumbled free onto the wet grass. She rolled him onto his back, checking his pulse. Thready, but there, then cradled his head, wiping soot from his face with her sleeve. "You're going to be okay," she whispered, her words a lifeline thrown into the dark. Rain mingled with tears on her cheeks, hot and cold in equal measure. She fumbled for her phone, an old flip model scavenged from a lost and found, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. "Accident under the bridge on Elm Street." "Fire, hurry." The operator's calm voice guided her, but Lena's eyes never left the man's face, willing strength into him. Sirens wailed in response, growing from a distant keen to a thunderous approach. Red and blue lights painted the scene in frantic colors, paramedics swarming like angels in yellow jackets. They took over, stabilizing his neck, starting an IV, their questions a blur. "What happened?" "Your name?" Lena backed away, heart pounding, Buddy's anxious whines pulling her further into the shadows. Gratitude swelled in her chest, mixed with a deep, bone-weary relief, but exposure terrified her more than the flames ever could. "Just go," she murmured to herself, melting into the night as the crowd gathered. The last thing she saw was the man loaded onto a stretcher, alive because of her. It was enough. The man was Ethan Hargrove, 28 and at the peak of a life most envied. By day, he was the golden boy of Hargrove Architects, a firm that sculpted the city's skyline with glass spires and steel bones. His office overlooked Central Park, a sanctuary of blueprints and models where ideas took flight on the wings of innovation. Tall and lean, with a jawline sharp as drafting tools and eyes like stormy seas, gray-blue depths that hid more than they revealed, Ethan commanded respect with quiet confidence. His suits were tailored to perfection, his schedule a symphony of meetings and deadlines. Yet beneath the polish lay fractures, invisible to the world. Ethan's childhood had been a gilded cage. Orphaned at 10 when his parents' yacht capsized in a Hampton squall, swallowed by waves that cared nothing for fortunes or fame, he'd been shuttled through estates and boarding schools, raised by a parade of nannies whose affection came in measured doses. The inheritance built empires, but it couldn't fill the hollow echo in his chest. He threw himself into work, designing structures that defied gravity, as if proving he could master what the sea had stolen. Success followed, awards on mahogany shelves, clients who hung on his every word. But nights in his penthouse with its panoramic views and silent marble floors brought the ache roaring back. He'd pour a scotch, neat, and stare at the bridge in the distance, a relic of the city's industrial past, sturdy yet scarred. It called to him, that raw underbelly, a reminder that not everything gleamed. The crash upended it all. Ethan remembered little at first, just the skid, the world tilting, then oblivion. Consciousness returned in fragments, the hospital's antiseptic sting, monitors beeping like accusatory clocks, his body a canvas of bruises and stitches. The gash on his forehead would scar, a silvery crescent moon, but it was the nurse's words that lingered. "A young woman pulled you out, sir." Barefoot in the rain, called for help, then slipped away. "Brave soul." Ethan's throat tightened, gratitude flooding him like sunlight after eclipse. In his fevered dreams, he saw her, auburn hair whipping in the gale, eyes fierce with purpose, voice a soft anchor. "Stay with me." Who risked everything for a stranger? In a city of hurried glances, her act was a beacon. Recovery was a slow rebuild. Physical therapy turned his architect's precision against his limbs. Crutches clicking like metronomes, muscles protesting each step. Discharged after 10 days, Ethan returned to his penthouse, but the space felt larger, emptier. The crash wasn't just metal and fire, it was a mirror reflecting the isolation he'd armored himself against. Lucky, his doctor had said, but luck? No, this was grace, unearned and profound. It stirred a restlessness in him, a call to action. He started small, shedding his suits for jeans and hoodies, wandering the streets incognito. Soup kitchens became his new blueprints. Ladling stew into bowls, the steam rising like prayers, listening to stories etched in weathered faces. "What's your name?" He'd ask gently, no judgment in his tone. He left gifts in quiet ways, thermal socks tucked into shelter mailboxes, sketchpads and pencils at park benches, as if his subconscious sketched for someone just like her. He searched for her, not with billboards or detectives, but with heart-led persistence. Volunteers at the scene had seen a girl with a dog, auburn hair, vanishing like smoke. He haunted the bridge, leaving care packages under the girders, canned soup, dog treats, a note. For the kind ones, you're not forgotten. Weeks blurred into a rhythm of giving, each act a brick in a new foundation. Ethan's designs softened too. Proposals for community centers with open courtyards, bridges redesigned as gathering places rather than barriers. Colleagues noticed the shift, teasing him about his street phase, but he waved it off with a rare smile. Inside, the girl from the fire had become his North Star, a mystery that mended his own cracks. Lena felt the ripples of kindness like faint sunlight through clouds. The first gift appeared on a frosty dawn. A wool coat, deep navy and impossibly soft, draped over her cardboard with a note inside. Warmth for the watcher. Thank you for seeing. She slipped it on, the fabric hugging her like an old friend's embrace, and wept silent tears into Buddy's fur. More followed. A vet visit for Buddy's sore paw, paid anonymously. Bags of kibble that stretched their meals. Even a fresh sketch pad, its pages crisp and waiting. Someone's looking out, she told Buddy during their river walks, the water lapping gentle secrets at their feet. She scanned faces in the crowds, wary but warmed, her own sketches evolving. Heroes not with capes, but coats and quiet hands. Hope flickered, tentative as a candle in draft, but real. Winter deepened its hold, snow dusting the bridge like powdered sugar on bitter bread. Charity events dotted the calendar, beacons of goodwill amid the gray. The Winter Haven Gala was one such night, held in a grand hall downtown where chandeliers dripped light like honey over velvet gowns and polished shoes. Ethan attended out of duty. His firm sponsored a booth, a nod to corporate heart, but his mind wandered to the streets below. From the terrace overlooking the twinkling aid station at the fence line, he spotted her. The world narrowed. There, ladling soup from a steaming pot, auburn braid swaying, smile blooming for a child who splashed his bowl. The navy coat, his coat, hung loose on her frame, but her posture was straight, resilient. Buddy sat at her feet, tail wagging a greeting to passers-by. Ethan's breath hitched, pulse thundering like the first blueprint line on blank paper. It was her. He descended the steps, heart a wild drum, weaving through the crowd with purpose. She looked up as he neared, ladle pausing midair, eyes flaring with the instinct to flee. The coat's hem brushed her worn jeans, and for a heartbeat she braced, expecting the shove of authority, the curt, "Move along." I can go," she stammered, voice a whisper lost in the chatter. Gripping the ladle like a shield, Ethan stopped short, then knelt slowly, bringing himself to her level. Rain from an afternoon shower still beating on the leaves overhead. His eyes, those stormy seas, brimmed with unshed emotion. "Go. No, please, stay." His voice was soft, threaded with wonder. "That night under the bridge, the crash, the fire, you pulled me out, held me until help came. I woke in the hospital with your voice in my head. You're going to be okay. It was you. Lena, right? I asked around." She blinked, the ladle clattering to the table, memories crashing over her like the rain that night. The smoke's choke, his weight in her arms, the fragile pulse under her fingers. You know my name?" Her voice cracked, a sob bubbling up, muffled by her sleeve. Buddy nosed forward, sniffing Ethan's knee, then licking his hand in curious approval. A bridge built in fur and trust. "Every detail," Ethan said, rising but keeping distance, hands open. "The way you braved the flames, barefoot and fierce. I'm Ethan, and you saved more than my life that night. You gave me a reason to really live it." Tears traced his cheeks, unashamed. The gala's distant orchestra swelled, a romantic waltz underscoring the moment. Around them, volunteers bustled, oblivious to the quiet miracle unfolding. Lena searched his face, seeing not pity, but recognition, a shared shadow of loss in his eyes. "I just couldn't leave you," she whispered. "No one should burn alone." Buddy's tail thumped, breaking the spell, and Ethan chuckled softly, the sound warm as hearth fire. "Will you share a bowl with me?" "Just soup. No more than that, I promise." Hesitation lingered, but Buddy's nudge and the coat's remembered warmth tipped her. They found a bench nearby, the wood damp but sturdy, steam curling from their bowls like shared breaths. The soup was hearty, beef barley, chunks of carrot and tender meat, echoing her mother's recipe. "It's got a secret," Lena said shyly, spooning a bite. Stubborn love stirred in slow. Ethan savored it, nodding as if tasting ambrosia. "Better than any five-star plate. Tell me about it." About you." Conversation unfurled like a scroll, halting at first, then flowing. She spoke of the brownstone's ghosts, the crash that orphaned her soul, nights sketching dreams under stars that felt too far. He shared his waves of loss, the yacht's cold embrace, buildings razed to bury the empty. "We armor ourselves," he admitted, voice low. "But you cracked mine wide open." Her hand brushed his over the bench. A spark, accidental yet electric, and for the first time, Lena felt the weight lift. Just a little. Seen, valued. The ladle forgotten. They lingered until the event's lights dimmed, Buddy dozing between them. From that bench, their worlds intertwined, thread by gentle thread. Ethan didn't overwhelm with grandeur. He met her where she stood. A safe apartment first, not his penthouse, but a quiet walk-up near the firm, with a window for Buddy's sunbaths and a kitchen that smelled of possibility. "Your space," he said, handing her the key. "Build it your way." Classes followed, night courses and illustration at a community center, her pencils dancing across pads under fluorescent hum. Professors marveled at her intuition, lines that breathed life into spaces. A job at the firm came naturally. Junior designer, her sketches infusing Ethan's grand plans with heart. Playgrounds with hidden nooks for dreamers, shelters arched like welcoming arms. Buddy claimed the penthouse on weekends, his paws pattering on cool marble chasing the laser pointers Ethan wielded with boyish glee. Simple joys wove their bond. Saturday markets where Lena haggled for fresh bread, teaching Ethan the art of a good bargain, his laughter booming when she won a bundle of carrots for pennies. Evenings in the brownstone, reclaimed with quiet funds, walls repainted ochre, her parents' jazz records spinning tales of swing and sway. She'd knead dough for Rosa's rolls, flour dusting Ethan's shirt like snow, his hands clumsy but eager over hers. "Like this?" He'd ask, and she'd guide him, their fingers lingering, pulses sinking to the oven's warm tick. Love crept in on whispers, not fanfare. It bloomed in stolen glances during drafting sessions, her shoulder against his at the table, ideas sparking like fireflies. In quiet confessions by the river, rain soft on the water. "I was terrified that night," Lena admitted one dusk, her voice a hush. "Not the fire, the thought of one more loss. But pulling you out, it pulled me back too, gave me purpose." Ethan took her hand, thumb tracing her knuckles, scars and all. "You didn't save a body, Lena. You woke a heart. Mine was drifting, all structure and no soul. Now, it's yours." Vulnerability bridged them. Therapy walks with Buddy, unpacking grief's tangled roots side by side. Her fear of anchors, debts, and doubts pulling her under, he met with steady hands, clearing old liens not as charity, but partnership. "We build together," he'd say, signing papers with her, the brownstone rising anew, garden blooming with chamomile, a sketch studio bathed in light. His isolation thawed in her warmth, colleagues noting the smiles that lingered, the way his designs now cradled people, not just stone. Challenges came, as they do, doubts whispering in dark hours, a tough client questioning her street smarts in a meeting that left her shaking. Ethan stood beside her, voice firm. Her vision sees what numbers miss, humanity. She grew, resilience flowering into confidence, leading youth workshops where kids like her once were sketched futures bright as her lines. Summer arrived on wings of gold, the city exhaling into lazy heat. On the solstice, the longest light, Ethan planned his boldest line yet. He blindfolded her with a silk scarf from his drawer, soft, smelling of his cologne, and led her by hand to the intersection, Buddy trotting ahead with a secret in his collar. The air hummed with crickets and distant laughter, flowers nodding where the guardrail once scarred the earth. "Trust the path?" he murmured, his breath warm on her ear. "With you, always." The blindfold slipped free and Lena gasped. The corner transformed, vines woven into an archway, fairy lights twinkling like captured stars, a picnic blanket spread with her mother's rolls and chamomile iced sweet. Buddy sat proud, a sign dangling, "Forever starts here." Ethan's knee met the ground. Ring extended. a simple silver band, etched with a tiny bridge, gleaming humble and true. That night, he began, voice thick as honeyed emotion, eyes locked on hers, windows to storms now calm. I lost control on this road, wheels slipping, world ending. But you ran from shadows into fire, pulled me free, not just from wreck and flames, but from a life half-lived, armored, and alone. God, fate, whatever name, sent you to mend what waves broke in me. Lena, my light, my builder, marry me? Sketch our forever, hand in heart? Tears cascaded, joyful rivers down her cheeks, but her smile outshone the sun. She knelt to him, fingers tracing the ring's curve. Yes, Ethan, 1,000 yeses woven tight. That pull from the fire? It was us, calling home. Their kiss sealed it, soft and deep, the world fading to their rhythm, lips meeting like long-lost shores. Buddy barked approval, leaping to join the tangle of limbs and laughter. In the afterglow, as dusk painted rose and lavender skies, they dreamed aloud, the brownstone a nest for more, little feet pattering, sketches on fridge doors, jazz at dawn. Family forged in fire's forge, not blood's dictate, trials past, love's arch unyielding. And in the hush, under stars winking knowing, they understood. Kindness, the smallest seed, grows the deepest roots. Sometimes from ashes rises not just survival, but souls entwined eternal.